This meeting is being recorded.
I'm getting back in the car and I thought, oh, it's still really not.
Hey, Teresa.
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course, of course. Looks like we've got our Morgan and Irene's on. Hi, Irene.
Hmm.
And Rachel and Cass. I don't think we've met, but nice to meet you.
That way you can get a name to the face. Hi.
How
Nice to
are
meet you too.
you?
Good morning, everyone. My camera won't work. I don't know why. Sorry.
Glad you're here, Morgan. Nice doing some transactions with you right now, or a transaction.
Absolutely.
And sorry, I was walking around the office. I'm here, Teresa.
Hi, how are you? Good to see
Good.
you.
Good to see you. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Um, let's see. I see a Kathy without a, is that Kathy? Is that,
Hi, sorry, I was feeding my
hi,
dog. I
Kathy.
forgot to feed her.
Oh, wait, there's Rachel. Wait, which one are, wait. Who do we have here? Is it you,
So,
Rachel? Who am I looking at? Wait, moving down. Can everybody
Kathy.
hear me?
That's
Kathy?
Kathy and
Yeah,
Morgan
Kathy. There's
and Rachel.
Rachel and Kay. Yep. Okay. Right. My screens are flickering as they go across.
I'm
Great.
the only one that, wait a minute.
I don't see you. Yeah, you're there. You are.
Ah,
Hi. Good to see you. Well,
Hi.
it's 9:01 and I'm a pretty prompt person, so I'm glad that all of you jumped on with me today. We all got our coffee. So cheers to a little bit of coffee right here. So, um, basically, what I want to do is pretty much start, and I'm going to start with about wells, and then I'm going to go over to septics. And remember, we're not the expert in real estate, but we can help find the experts. So we're just going to provide our knowledge to our clients, and anything that's above us, remember to turn that hat over because you only wear one hat, right? It's your real estate hat. We have the knowledge, but we're not the experts. Hi, Heather. So I want to start out with Is anybody here on well and septic right now themselves? Like they know they live the world? Anybody just want to raise their hand? Morgan is? Okay. Morgan, are you both well and septic? Yep. Okay. So she's going to understand this world quite a bit. But let me just start out with private wells. So I'm going to act like first we're the listing agent, then I'm going to talk about it, what it looks like when you're the buying agent for a well. Okay. I have all my notes. I would be very happy to send this all to you at the end if anybody would like it. Just send me a text, say just forward your notes to me because on my last page I provide a lot of links. Okay. So if you want a copy of it, please don't hesitate to ask. But I'm always here for you too. So please put my number in your phone. If anybody has a pen right now, if I'm not in your phone, Theresa Didion, 585-754-3806. Text me, call me anytime. I'm here to help, okay? So we get a call from a friend and they want us to list their property and they're on the outskirts of the town or village. And the first thing we want to ask them is, what's their water source? Okay. We want to understand it, are they public connected or are they on a well? So if they say I'm on a well, there's things we have to
No.
investigate and we want to know ahead of time. Okay. First thing we want to understand is where is the well outside? So walk outside with your client. You want to know exactly where the well location is. You want to first make sure that the wellhead is covered. You're going to get a cap on your wellhead. If that's not covered, that's the first thing you're going to ask your homeowner to do is to make sure that they cover that well. Old-fashioned homes, older homes, 1950s and past, you might find old well houses where their well is actually in there, or you might find a really unique location and their well could be under their deck. I've had it all, okay? But you want to know where that well is and you want to document that because that's actually a part of the MLS input sheet too. So know where your well is. Yes.
Can it be anywhere or does it have to be in a certain radius of the house?
Yep. So the well, we don't really care the location. It's the distance between the well and septic. Septic is what we really care about, right? We don't want those too close. When you do well and septic, I think it's New York State standard is the well head and the septic tank have to be 50 feet or farther apart. The leach lines have to be 100 feet apart. So if your well and septic are right next to each other, the next thing, what are we going to look for? We got to make sure that water is being, you know, potable water. We want to make sure they have some type of water system in their home, but we'll go over that in just a second. So your well can actually be anywhere because your older homes, they are going to be pretty close to the house. Because remember back in the day, they had cisterns in their house. So when they finally got rid of the cisterns and they actually drilled or dug a well, that's a question you're going to be asking. Is this well dug or is this a drilled well? That's going to make that well head a little bit closer to the house. When you have our newer build homes, you might find your wellhead is a little bit farther away. Okay. One thing you want to determine, is it drilled? Is it dug? Or is it even a spring fed? What does that mean? Where's the well? Well, it's over there because it's coming from a spring and it's a spring fed well is not a capped well, right? You can't put a cap on that. So that's another red flag for you to make sure that there is some type of purification system within inside the property. Okay. So we're outside in the yard. First, we find a wellhead. It's got a cap on it. We ask our clients, do they know if it's a dug or a drilled well? A lot of people don't know that, but that's okay. So what does it tell us? If it's a dug well, that means, what does that mean? That means you're only digging so far down and you're mostly just getting groundwater in that well, right? A lot of chances are you're getting groundwater. If it's a drilled well, that tells us that somebody, company came in like Moravec Well Drilling and actually had to drill down and actually find water. How far down did they have to drill? This is just knowledge that you're going to want to have because you're the listing agent and you're going to want to provide that to all the buyers agents, right? Because we want a smooth transaction with everything that we're doing. Okay. So what if we have a spring fed well? What do we do about that when all the water is coming from an uncapped water source? Again, your dug wells, you might have low volume. Your drilled wells, you might have higher volume. Your spring fed wells, you're going to have unlimited water, right? but most likely if it's not filtered within the house, then that's a red flag. So you ask your client the last time they had their water tested. When did you test for potability? When did you confirm that you can drink this well without it being contaminated? So hopefully, hopefully they test their water every year or every other year. Hopefully, and if they don't test their water, they have a purification system in, like a UV system that's purifying water. Some homes drink straight from the tap and they don't have a purification system. That's not a bad thing. There are still some pure wells out there. So, but what you have to do is just determine all of this. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the basement or wherever the bladder tank is and their purification system is, if they have one, and take a look at what we have there. Hopefully we have a UV system. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's a UV bulb that is going to be purifying that water as it comes in. We could have reverse osmosis. That's another type of treatment that usually is handled by bleach, a bleach and water system that will be inside the property. And keep in mind, if you see any of these purification systems, they really should be accompanied by a softener. Now, I learned this the hard way. I had a property on the lake that did have a UV system in. Okay, they had the bulb. The nice thing about the UV bulbs is they run on a meter, 365 days. That'll be above the bulb and it'll count down, letting you know when that bulb needs to be changed. But there was no softener. So, according to our well experts, you really need to have the softener, which is your salt, which is right, your container, and you pour your salt in, should go hand in hand with your UV or your reverse osmosis. Okay. So you go in the basement, either they have nothing and they're drinking straight from the tap. What would I say? You have nothing here. You're a dug well. Here's your thought, Mr. Seller. This is your choice how we handle this. We can either A, test for potability now before we go on the market, because if by chance there's any of our bacterias in there, we can take care of that now. So when we go on the market, we're proving that we have clean, potable water. Or B, you can see if your contract comes through with the buyer requesting the water to be tested and then deal with it then. Now there's a risk there. If your well is not producing potable water or it's not producing enough volume, you could risk losing this potential buyer. That's a risk you're taking, but it's your choice. There's no law that says they have to do all this testing prior to listing. But what our job as a listing agent is, we want to get them as prepared as possible for a successful sale. So you let them know they have the options. They make the choice on that. I follow FHA standards when it comes to water potability testing. Okay. If a lot of times homeowners are constantly testing their water, Morgan and I are going through this right now with a home we're having a successful sale on, where they're constantly keeping up on monitoring their systems, getting their water purification systems clean, and constantly testing and have a history of reports. If there's no history of reports, that's kind of a red flag to me a little bit. And some people might say, "Oh, I don't like the way that my well tastes because there might be iron in it or sulfur. I don't drink from that." They can do whatever they want as a homeowner, but we really need to follow the right steps to transfer this property to someone providing them with a safe property, right? And water is definitely one of them. So I ask my seller if they would test for all 5 components. 5 components are E. coli and coliform, nitrite, nitrit, and lead. Those are what FHA likes to see. Now, it's not wrong in some eyes if you're just testing for the bacteria, E. coli and coliform, but if you're dealing with any government-backed loans, they're going to want to see that next step. And that next step is very tricky. Why? Because when you test for lead, the seller has to shut their water, mainly from the kitchen sink. They can't use that water source for approximately 12 to 24 hours. Now, don't hold me to every exact timeline because every day is a different day in real estate, and that's one thing you need to know. Every day is a different day in real estate. So these are the basics that I'm telling you, but you're going to find your experts that you're going to work with, and then they're going to confirm anything that you're saying. But this is what you're going to be telling your seller so far. Last I knew, that's my favorite line. This is what will happen. So if you're advising your client to test for all of them, don't use the water source at the kitchen sink. They're the ones that are going to be scheduling the appointment with the well tester. You can provide them with a name of someone who can do that. I can provide you with someone who can do that. And then they'll have that conversation to confirm what we're saying. Okay. You're testing for lead. This kitchen sink's going to be off. The tester's going to come in, well guy. He's going to take off that aerator, right? Right. He's going to clean inside and he's going to draw the water and then he's going to do a clean catch. Okay. This is how he's going to take his lead test and all the other tests, matter of fact. But, and then he will be responsible for transporting that to the lab. Please don't ever let your seller take their own tests unless they were already done, like prior to this. It's a bad look. Okay. We want to trust everyone with our whole heart, but you always need that third party to be doing the work for you just to keep the integrity throughout the transaction. Well worth the money spent. Okay. So they're going to we're going to pretend they're going to do what we ask and do this ahead of time before listing the property, right? They do all their testing. The seller is going to get the reports and they're going to report back to you how everything came out. If everything comes out clean, congratulations. You're going to ask them for that report and that's going to be an attachment for you on the MLS. So you're going to prove to the buyer's agent or the buyer that you've already.
No.
Hello? Oh, anybody need me? Okay, didn't know if anybody need me. You're going to prove to the buyer that you have potable water. Another thing you're going to have your well tester do is you want to understand volume. You want to understand if your clients ever run out of water. You're going to ask them, and a lot of times it's actually yes as opposed to no, because they might say, hey, it was a dry year and I power washed my house and we ran out of water, but it recovered within like a half an hour. Don't get alarmed if they tell you it happened once or twice before. Where you want to have a concern is if they said, yes, we run out of water often if somebody's doing a load of laundry and 3 people just took a shower. Well, when you're in the basement, you're going to understand, do they have a holding tank? If they run out of water, that can be remedied with a holding tank in the property if they don't have one. Now that's going to, occur another expense if they have to have water purified and a holding tank. But in today's world, you're going to have a hard time if your buyer is getting a bank loan. The bank's going to be requiring all this anyways. Okay. So again, you're advising, you can say, okay, Mr. Seller, get the well guy here, have the water tested for potability, have the water tested for volume. And if you run out of water, then you have to make the decision. We need to disclose that, right? And say, yes, we only produce X number of gallons per minute. Or look at, we're all set. I just had a holding tank put in and we remedied the problem. So a lot going on when you have a property that's on a well. If your water does not test potable, I want to go back to it, the well person will assist them on what needs to be done to make that water potable. Yes, Morgan.
You said that the volume, how much should volume come out to be acceptable?
So the last I knew, FHA 2 gallons a minute, but that could vary. So
Okay.
It all depends on, if they've run out before. And it all
Okay.
depends on, so what's going to happen when the well guy goes out there, he's running that well dry to test for volume, right? Usually they do it with a bucket and they watch on their phone how many gallons per minute it's producing. And then when it runs out, then they also wait and they're watching on their phone to see when that recovers. Okay. So it's in conventional loans are not this strict like FHA. Conventional loans, you could basically get away with just doing bacteria testing, E. coli and coliform, and they might not even ask for volume. So, okay. So it all depends on the bank. If the bank is satisfied, then the bank is satisfied. Yeah. Okay. Any questions, anyone so far? I know it's a lot of information, but all of you have my number and you can call me and then talk, I can go over this again with you. Like I said, I provide my notes. All right. So if the seller chooses to do all this ahead of time, great. If they choose not to do this ahead of time, you just have educated them already what could happen during this transaction. So it's really important to give them as much information as you can ahead of time, and then they can make this decision how they want to handle it. Okay. Fran mentioned, how close does the well have to be with the house? And I had touched on the fact of, it really matters where the well and septic are in connection with each other. So if I want to talk now about the buyer end about wells and then I'm going to switch to septic. Okay. So if you're representing a buyer and they send you a house that they love, the first thing you're going to do is look at the private remarks and look at the attachments on the listing to see if the agent provided anything they would know already about the well on the property. If there's no information about it, reach out to that agent, because you know what, they may just haven't gotten it on there, but just reach out to them, say, do you have any information regarding the well at the property? Okay. If the answer is no, then here you go again. You're going to be going to that property for the showing with your buyer, and you're going to go wherever you're starting. You're most likely starting in the house, right? Going into the basement, first thing you're going to look at, where is the water tank? Where is the bladder tank? And what's next to it? Is there a holding tank there? Is there a UV system there? Is there reverse osmosis? The bacteria injection system? What do we have here? Okay. If there's nothing there, then you're going to want to go out to the yard. Well, you're going out to the yard anyways, and you're going to look for the well. You're going to look to see if you can tell anything. Okay. You obviously can't tell if something is drilled or dug. I mean, experts can by the well head, but we shouldn't touch that. But you're going to want to just see, okay, this well, it's got a covered cap on it. That's a good sign. But you're going to educate your buyer. Look, when we write an offer, there's no purification system here. There's no holding tank here. The agent says they drink straight from the tap, but here's where we got to have a conversation. Your offer can contain a contingency for the well, and you can either pay for the well testing or you can ask the seller to pay for the well testing. Here's my trick. Here's my nugget for you when it comes to that. If you know you're competing against other buyers, you can say to your client, look, I know you, and your client's telling you, I don't want to pay for it. It's not my water. I don't want to pay for it. You can say, how about this? We're going to ask the seller to pay to have the water tested for potability and volume, but then we're going to reimburse them up to, let's go $2,000 at the closing table. So you're providing a perk. You're making the seller responsible. You're still keeping that as a contingency, but then you're willing to reimburse the seller at the closing table. It's just one strategy I use depending on how popular this property is, how much my clients want this property, etc. So that could be a perk. Okay. If you're not competing against anyone, then you're going to ask the seller to have the water tested for potability and volume. Okay. If they can provide you with updated information on that, then you may even waive it. Like Morgan and we had a deal where my clients got a history of their well and septic. But we've still provided them, because we still had that on the books for us to do it anyways. We still provided her with the reports. Okay. But it was our expense, not the buyer's expense. She wasn't competing against anyone. There was no reason to rock the boat there. And it worked out where my client was willing to, give them exactly what they asked for. But you really got to play that on how hot the property is, I guess.
Theresa, could you share how much it costs to test for functionability and potability? Like you had said, a $2,000 credit at closing. what is it? What could it look like as far as a price for either party to pay for that?
Yeah, that's an extreme number, and I think that would cover everything. But what we have to keep in mind is it's all over the board. I just did one. I think it was like five. It was high. I thought five, like 35 for E. coli, coliform, nitrate, and lead and volume. I think it
I'm
was 535, but every well tester is going to be a little bit different. But if you're giving a big buffer and you know it's only going to be in that range, you're not giving them that whole, you're giving them up to 2000, right? Here's another thing though. You've got to be careful how that's also playing out. Are you paying for the well potability and volume, or are you also giving a credit if they need to put in the UV system in, which is going to be over $1,400? So you can have that whole credit towards everything, which is fine. Okay. But kind of keep that in the back of your mind. What does that look like?
So
You
I
know,
would say
curious
under
because
$1,000 is fair.
yes, I would say $1,000 is even 900 if you're, I know we got to talk up play on numbers on what our clients are comfortable with, but, um, I think, yeah, $1,000 is credit at closing towards, you can be very specific, water potability tests and volume tests.
Mhm.
Any upgrades or repairs or improvements would be
Would be
on,
secondary, sure.
yeah,
Okay,
on
thank
I'm
you.
curious why yours was so expensive, just because like the one that I did on McKay Street, it was like $275.
McKay, did you do all five components? And did
I'm
they
gonna have
come clean the system?
I'm gonna have to double check. Oh, so that includes cleaning the system?
Yeah, yeah, which,
Oh,
yeah, so,
okay, that makes more sense.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, because no, it was just the testing.
yeah. And you used probably the Whalen lab is probably where they went for your McKay?
The guy that you sent me,
Oh, okay.
Jim, I think his name was. Yeah,
Got it. Okay, yeah, Pete
and he
took
was
it.
great, by the way. But
She doesn't
yeah,
have an elaborate system there though.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay, so
and
you can request them to clean the system. I didn't know that. If they
well,
have one. Yeah.
if they certainly should because if
Oh,
it's got bacteria, if you, yeah, they certainly, the barrel, where your salt is, just make
yeah,
sure that's clean. You know,
gotcha. Okay,
you just want, I mean, if everything just looks really poor condition, then they're going to want to clean the system.
gotcha.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But you'll find, I don't even know. It's like what we deal with inspections. The price could be all over the board for the same thing. So I always err on the side of caution and go with more.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? Nope. Okay.
Where's the public water? Holy cow.
Right. Public water is a good thing. But a lot of people, my nephew, he would come to my house with his jugs because he loved my water. Because, public water, I don't know, I don't think they're still putting fluoride in, or maybe some are. Not sure. They put some chemicals in that.
They have to put they put 7 parts per million in.
Of fluoride. There
Mhm.
you go. Yeah. So what do
I
you
grew
do?
up I grew up on well water and septic, and I don't even remember any of this like being a thing. So
It's
this
probably
is
because everything was probably fine in your house, which is
yeah.
good. Or you'd remember.
Mhm.
You'd remember if your house smelled like eggs.
Yeah.
Also, keep in mind certain locations have sulfur in their water. Like Bloomfield, I think is very famous for nitrite and nitrate and the iron bacteria. So if you're in Bloomfield, you could get the sulfur smell and you could have those issues. If you're on County Road 12 in Naples, I've sold so many properties on County Road 12, and the majority of them have holding tanks and reverse osmosis. So, or yeah, excuse me, iron bacteria. So if you're on County Road 12, 90% of those homes run out of water. A lot of them have holding tanks, which have alleviated the problem, and a lot of them have iron bacteria systems in them. So know your locations. Yeah. Who has
Teresa,
what?
I have a quick question.
Yes. Hi. I didn't even
Hi.
see you there. I only have a few of you on my screen. So how are you?
Good. I
Good.
have a friend who lives on East Lake Road on the lake, and they are way up on the hill, but they have a pipe that comes down and goes into the lake, and that is their
Lake
water.
water.
I
Mhm.
know they have some sort of treatment system in their basement. So would you follow all that same protocol if you were doing a house that had that as their water source?
Yeah, so that's really tricky because we know the lakes are contaminated, and when they're pulling from the lake, you number one, you've got to have a UV system, so make sure it is a UV system there. And find out if they do drink from the tap. A lot of lake people still will purify their water because when you're in the shower, water might get in your mouth or whatever, but a lot of them still don't drink from the tap. They'll still have bottled water. So yes, I would because you still have to provide, unless the homeowner's okay with it, you know what I mean? But I don't know who would be in today's world, right?
Mhm.
But lake
And
water
they
is
bought
very
it.
true.
They bought it before I had my license, so I don't know, what they did when they bought it, but I do know that they're like, we got to keep that water line buried, and it's a whole thing.
Well, because they don't want it to freeze either. So have
Right.
they lost water because with the lake froze close to the house, do you know?
I don't think so.
That's a question because the water's just going right out to the edge of the lake, and that's where we always freeze.
Mm-hmm.
So just curious, because a lot of times you see the aerators, guys, you see like the little bubbles that always come out around the deck. That's
Mm-hmm.
serving a purpose for the people who have wells, who pull from the lake. Forgive me, there's a big difference, pulling from the lake. So you now know the purpose of those.
Is there a place on the MLS form? They're not selling, so this is just hypothetical. But is there a place on the MLS input form where you can say that the water comes from the lake as opposed
Right,
to the
it'll say
well?
well location, and you just put lake.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, lake, spring, or left side of the house, right side of the house, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Anybody? I'm glowing. You see this light behind me? I didn't even notice it till right now. I'm looking at myself here. All right, guys. Is that distracting? Does it just look like a white background? Cool. Any questions well, on the wells? Okay. I know it's a lot of information, but water potability is key, and you want to provide that for your clients. If you are on public water and septic, I professionally rather see that, okay? It's when you're on well and septic, you get pretty tricky. Why? Because your septic could be contaminating your well. That's why when Fran mentioned, where's the location of the well? Where's the location of both? All right. We don't want them right next to each other. Remember, 50 feet from the wellhead to the tank, 100 feet from the wellhead to the leach line. Just so you all understand what your septic tank looks like. If you want to know where your septic is, if your client's telling you they don't know, find the bathroom on the first floor. If there's no bathroom on the first floor, find the kitchen, find the bathroom on the second floor, go outside. You're roughly 10 feet out from that window. That's where you're going to guess the septic tank's going to be. Okay. Then you're going to go, where's the well? Or we did the well first anyways, but you're at the septic now. Where's the wellhead? Okay. You can spot it if it's 50 to 100 feet, but if it's close and it's uncomfortable for you, tell the seller to get measure that and find out what that is. Okay. Because that's really important because you don't want your own septic tank to contaminate your well, right? So that's
Does
important.
it show up on the survey too?
Hopefully, if they have a survey, it should. Yep, it should say where the wellhead is. Or well, if you're in the Canandaigua Lake watershed, you're going to have a map on where the septic is. Hopefully they have that on file. That helps me with a good point that I want to say now before I forget. If you are not in the Canandaigua Lake watershed for your septic inspection, and I'm going to go talk about that in a second. If you are just regular in the country, and either party, if you're representing the seller or the buyer, when that septic tank gets pumped, ask the septic company to draw you, even just as a hand-drawn map on where the septic is. So the next buyer knows where it is, doesn't drive on top of it, and knows where it is for the next time it needs to be pumped. What they normally do is they'll just draw a square. That's your house, right? The square is the house. And then they'll take the corner of the house and they'll go out so far. Okay. And that'll show you where your septic is. They'll draw a circle for the septic and they'll tell you how many feet out from there is, exactly where it is, what corner, what area. I mean, it's not always 10 feet out from the house, but that's the most likely place it will be. If it's an older home, it could be out a lot farther. So, but that's a good gauge on where that's going to be. But ask your septic company if the seller or the buyer to draw a map and show us where that location is. So if you're representing the buyer and it's on the seller to have the septic pumped, ask that agent, hey, when they come pump the septic, would you kindly ask them to draw us a map and provide us with the map when you provide us with the report? So my client moving forth knows exactly where that septic is. Because we know the septic report is going to tell us what's there, if it's a concrete tank, et cetera, et cetera. But we want to know the location of it. Okay. All right. So now, any questions about a well? No. Again, call me anytime. You know what? One thing I did want to say too, I made all these notes on my desk. The most important thing you could do is, I know we have AI, where I didn't have AI when I got in this business 18 years ago to ask AI a question about well and septics, because being at a well and septic appointment is so important. I don't say you have to go to all of them in your life as a realtor, but you should go to enough to where you know what you're looking at, and you're watching what the water guy is doing, and you're watching what the septic guy is doing. You should know the process. So that way you're seeing it. You're not just AIing the question and reading it. You lived it. You can tell your clients, I have been present when the well has been tested. You can watch them how they do their tests. You can watch them how they do their volume. Same thing with a septic. The ones I like to go to are the ones that do include watersheds, because you have your watershed commissioner there for the septic, which is required. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they're the ones that give you a lot of knowledge. If you're there with Tyler Oley, who's the watershed commissioner for Canandaigua, he won't talk your ear off, but if you ask him a question, you'll get a very detailed answer. And so you learn a lot. So if you do anything in this business, I'm not saying attend them all, but if you're on the buyer side, that's really where you should be attending, if you could, right? Enough to educate yourself. It's just going to help you in the future. You can actually factually say, you've attended these, you see what's going on, you understand what's going on. So AI is great, but they can't replace being in person at something and seeing it for yourself. What time do we have here? Okay. What's our time frame? I think we're just going to go, but we might go a little bit longer because I do now have to talk about septic. Everybody okay? Okay. In regards to septic, same questions apply. Okay. So you're at the property. You've already discussed the well with your client. Now the septic. Do they know where the septic is? Do they have any reports? When's the last time they had the septic pumped? Are they in a watershed? Okay. These are the things you're going to ask your client. If they provide you with all these great reports, that's fantastic. If everything looks good, if it's a functioning concrete tank, if it has functioning leach fields, if they just had it pumped 2 years ago, if they are or are not in the Canandaigua Lake watershed, when they purchased it, did the watershed inspect it? Okay. These are all the things you want to know. If the seller says, I have nothing, I inherited this house from my great aunt, I don't know a thing, that's when we say the same thing. Okay, Mr. Seller, you have some choices here. We can do these things now, and take care of it if any issues come up, or not and disclose any issues, or we can wait until we're under contract. Okay. So what we want to know is, we want to know where the septic is. We want to know if it's adequate for the number of bedrooms. That's where people get confused. It's not the number of bathrooms in your home. It's the number of bedrooms. So you have to have a certain number of bedrooms for a certain size septic tank. So I want to talk really clear on this. If you have a tank that's only 900 gallons, already know that's not servicing anything anymore. If you have a property that doesn't have a tank and it's going into a old-fashioned railroad ties or stone bed made 50 years ago, those don't fly anymore. Those are back in our 1800 houses. You've got to have an actual tank there. You also don't want a metal tank. Metal tanks corrode. You also don't want a PVC tank. PVC tanks get crushed. You really want this house to have a concrete tank with leach fields if there's enough room in the yard. What you might find with older homes is you might find two tanks because there's not enough room for a leach field. So you might find a tank and then another tank. So that wouldn't be uncommon either. When you're out in the yard, you want to look to see if there's any, you want to smell, are there any odors out here? Are there any odors in the home that would tell us maybe the system isn't working properly? Is there any really dead grass or really green grass? Like, can you see where those leach lines are? Is the grass really super dead or is it really super green? A little bit of red flags here. What's going on with the system? Is it not leaching out properly? Is it staying right in the leach bed? Is it not leaching at all? Those kind of things. So, find out what the seller has. If the seller has nothing, suggest to them that they have a septic company come out and pump and inspect the system before you go on the MLS. But this is one thing you have to know. Don't forget to say that when you get that report, okay, same thing with your water reports. Under the private remarks, you need to say to the buyers to accept the existing water potability and volume and septic reports, because you don't want your client doing them again. If everything's good and if you're, see what I'm saying? You don't want your property to be on the market for 2 months and then all of a sudden the buyer's going to come back and say, I still want it pumped again. Then your seller's going to not be pretty happy with you, right? You got to make sure that if your seller does all this ahead of time, then you're disclosing on the MLS that the buyer is to accept the existing reports that are attached. Yep, Fran?
I just got excuse me, an accepted offer yesterday, and the seller can't find the receipt for the septic drainage and inspection. Well, I say inspection. When you have a septic pumped, is there an automatic inspection?
No, not automatically. They usually will just have their tank pumped. If the pumper noticed something wrong, like maybe a baffle's broke or something like that, they'll recommend it to be fixed. But usually only during deed transfer, or if the seller has a problem, then they'll take it to the inspection. But if they don't have the receipt, ask them what company it is. Call yourself.
The selling agent is calling the
Good.
company.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that there's enough of a report on that to at least determine if it's in good functioning order.
Are you in any watershed there? Are you near any water source?
Yes.
So
There's a creek maybe a mile down the road, maybe a half a mile down the road, enough
what
so
town is
that
this in? What town is this in?
there needs to be flood insurance.
Okay. Well, that's another tricky
Did you
thing with
ask the
flood
question?
insurance.
You just froze.
Are you on a well too?
No, no,
Okay, good. That
it's
gets tricky with flood insurance and being on a well. Okay. Um, what's interesting is, and I'm not throwing this agent under the bus, so this isn't my attempt here, but that
yeah.
agent should have already
He's a
done that,
KW
right?
agent.
You're under contract. Okay, that's what I'm saying, not throwing anybody under the bus. That's why we need to learn these things. We want to be that agent who has everything. We want our transaction to go so smoothly, it's crazy, right? So, okay, I'm glad that agent is taking the steps to at least get the documentation. But I would then turn it over to the attorney and just say, or the bank, if your client's getting a loan, is this satisfactory? And you got to do that right away. Because if any terms need to
Okay.
change, you see what I'm saying? The attorney's got to know about it. What town is this in?
Farmington.
Okay. All right, good. You're not in a watershed there, so
Is-
that's good.
Did anyone show Brownsville Road?
Me.
Yeah, you. We got
Yeah,
the
me.
house. Yeah, we got
Yes.
the. Hi, Jenny. You're way down there. I didn't see you. Okay. Um, yes. So, yeah.
Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. So basically, when it comes, again, that's why a listing appointment is so important to see if you can get these things taken care of ahead of time. If you can find out what's there, find out the last time it's pumped, and even provide those documents as an attachment if your client has all those. Those are very helpful, a lot of helpful information that the agent's going to see. And then the agent's going to see the last time the septic was pumped, right? So if it was in this year, you're going to ask the bank if they'll accept that. You know, if your client's okay with it, of course. I mean, that wouldn't be a bad thing, right? But if it's over a year old, sometimes people say even over 6 months, but let's be realistic. How many people are living in the house? How many number of bedrooms do we have? How big is the tank? How comfortable is your client with suggesting, look, we can accept the document that they had when they had it pumped, you know, in January, or we can ask them to do it again. I know there's a lot, every transaction in real estate is different. That's another thing. There's no cookie cutter anything that we do. So, but this is to hopefully give you some basic knowledge moving forth when you're listing and buying with well and septic for your clients. All right, so we're going to pretend the listing agent, everything's fine. This seller is got everything they need. Oh, hi, Morgan. Go ahead.
So sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. How do you tell how many bedrooms it's approved for?
You can Google that, but usually it's like if it's 1,000 gallon tank, and I don't have that note in front of me, so I think that's for 2 to 3 bedrooms, 1,250 and more is for
Okay, so we can Google it. It's a
exactly for
okay,
yes,
got
but
it.
that's important to know how many gallons because it's number of
Okay,
bedrooms, not bathrooms. Okay.
got it.
So hopefully and that's one thing you have to be careful. Thank you, Morgan. When you want to say, oh, let's just make this room a bedroom, and the tax records say that you're 3 bedroom, 2 bath, but there's these two creative rooms in the house that you're going to say, we're going to make that a bedroom and make that a bedroom. Now you're calling it a 5 bedroom. Does your septic, is it acceptable for a 5 bedroom? Be careful when you add on bedrooms. If
If
there's
the
a
seller
septic.
doesn't know how big the tank is, when the people go to pump it, can they tell how big the tank
Yes.
is?
Yes, they
Okay,
can. Hmm.
okay,
Yeah. But no, that's a really great question because you don't want to create all these bedrooms and you're creating
right.
space and then your septic tank isn't conducive and it is undersized for that number of bedrooms. You definitely don't want that. Now,
Okay.
if you're on public connected and you fairly have a closet and you ingress and egress and you want to say in the private remarks, as per seller, it's 5 bedrooms, you know what I mean? That kind of thing you can,
Okay,
as long as you're saying it's on them.
cool.
Um, Septic tanks, I have seen everything from, like I said, railroad ties. I have seen when we've gone to pump it, like where is it? They bring a backhoe in, all of a sudden they're digging down, and there's literally railroad ties as walls. Okay, I've seen it all. I've seen rocks as walls. I've seen nothing. I've seen a hole. So it's really important. And that's usually on, if you're in an old farmhouse and they've lived there for 20 years, be ready for anything because anything could happen. But no, but nowadays we're noticing people are living in their homes shorter amount of time. Isn't it seem that way? Like for me, I'm getting repeat buyers because they're ready to sell again. So I know I did all my due diligence 18 years ago, and when my client's ready to list now, I'm good, right? Because we took care of it then. But anyway, so make sure you know what your client has there. All right. Again, like I said, if it's an older tank, if you're going back past like 1976 or 74, somewhere in the 70s, you might find that you have a metal tank. Again, those corrode. I've had many tanks removed and replaced with a concrete tank. I've seen, like I said, I've seen PVC tanks. Those are usually done by the homeowner. Why? Because a homeowner can replace their own tank back in the day, and those are the easiest ones for them to get there. And because you could bring them on, I mean, they weigh hardly nothing, and those just crush down. Another thing you want to know when you're looking for your septic, when you're out there with your client, is to have a raised bed. Is there something flat on the surface that looks like a green flat cap? that's a raised bed, or is there anything coming out of the ground when they pump it that's how they access it? Or is it so far down they have to have a backhoe come to dig it up to pump it? So do you just see the tank lid at the top with two handles, right? Is that tank lid cracked? Is the tank lid in good condition? You want to make sure you see all that. Is it a raised bed system? Do you see multiple green caps? I actually like raised bed systems. They take up a lot of space, but they're usually engineered and done very well. So don't be alarmed if you see a raised bed system. Any questions? Anybody? So Canandaigua Lake watershed or any watershed, you want to make sure you ask your client if they know, if it's kind of, if you're like on the edge and you're like, okay, Canandaigua Lake or any lake is not that far away. You need to find out if they are in a watershed. Why? Because with deed transfer, now this is where it gets tricky because I've done both sides of this. You have to have somebody from the Canandaigua Lake watershed inspect that system. Now, what if you have a cash buyer and they're not asking for a septic inspection, but you're in the Canandaigua Lake watershed like Lisa's property is? Okay, now what? That buyer and that buyer's agent, they need to know that's going to come back on the buyer eventually once that title changes. You can't get away from it. So one attorney will say to you, the seller doesn't have to do it. Let it fall after title changes on the buyer. And another attorney will say, yes, get it done before deed transfer. It's such a attorney worded thing. I've been on both sides when it's happened. So just know, regardless, any watershed, any Finger Lakes watershed, if they're in it, and you can go to their site, the Canandaigua Lake watershed site for Canandaigua Lake anyways, and it'll tell you if your property is in the watershed or not. So you can look for that. You can Google that and you'll know. So and if you are in the watershed and your clients tell you that, send Tyler only an email, CC your client and say, hi, Joe Smith is also on this email. Please provide me with any documents you have on file. And then get that and add that as an attachment. That's very helpful. That's going to give you exactly where the septic tank is and all about the septic tank. Very valuable information. So any watershed that you're in, reach out to the watershed commissioner of that town, that municipality, and find out what they have on file and ask them to send it to you. If it's not in the watershed, when in doubt, go ahead and email Tyler. I've done that too. Like, Tyler, I know you told me there's a website for this, but can you just confirm with me that this property is or is not in the Canandaigua Lake watershed, if it's that close? So the more information you can have when you list a property, the better. The more information on the MLS from the listing agent when you're representing a buyer, the better. Because you just don't want to deal with these things when you're under contract if you don't have to.
Can I bring up something weird?
Yeah, nothing's weird. Go ahead.
Have you seen an aerobic septic system?
Oh, I've never seen one put in, but I understand clients who have them. Yes.
So I don't know if anybody else knows what that is, but the one that we're working on, my buyers, they have one.
Okay, great.
So I just learned about that. So I don't know if everybody else knows what that is, but it might be helpful.
Please go ahead.
Well, geez, you could probably explain it better than I can.
Well,
But it's like fancy poop.
Yeah.
It's got a bigger box and smaller leach lines. So there's only like two leach lines, and they only go out a short ways. But that's really all I know about it. I just know it's fancy.
Yeah, it's very expensive, and probably because of the lay of the land, like maybe a creek or maybe a building or maybe something like that.
There is a creek.
There you go. That's why they
Yep.
have an aerobic system, because you want to keep those leach lines away from any water source as well.
Gotcha.
Because what if you don't, nobody wants to contaminate a stream, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they have that there.
Interesting. Yeah, that was new for me. I'm like, you have a what?
Yeah, no, that's an expensive system. Very expensive. So, basically if you can attend that pumping of that would probably be really good. I mean, you're not going to see much, but they're going to tell you, okay, this is exactly where it is, and this is how it went in, and this is who designed it. I know. Go to them for a while. They're not fun. They do smell.
Yeah, they do.
But it's really knowledge. You're going to learn so much. Yeah.
Yeah, the blueprints of it were pretty impressive.
And expensive that because they had to get an engineer. So she
Yeah.
hits a good point. Like any new septic systems going in now require engineers, and then the engineer has to draw the system, then it has to be approved, and then, whether it's the watershed is approving it or not, it doesn't have to be approved if it's not in the watershed, but of course the septic company putting it in has to agree to it as well. Saying,
Gotcha.
okay, they believe this can work, kind
That
of
makes
thing.
sense.
Yeah, so they go
Okay,
hand
cool.
in hand. Like Bill Grove, he's the engineer
Yeah,
they use quite a bit for
I
the
love
maintenance
Bill.
area. Yep. And
He's wonderful.
he's designed many systems. So you get to know these people. They need to be your friends, and it's really
Yeah, if
going to
anybody
matter.
wants to use Bill, he's like family. He's amazing.
Oh, is he like family too? Oh,
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all family. All the Groves
Huh.
are family.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Any questions from anyone?
I have a quick question, Teresa. As a buyer's agent, what's your strategy when there's a well and a septic and your buyers know that they want their offer to be competitive and they're used to waiving inspections? What do you do knowing that they could have a huge expense if they don't get those inspected before they buy?
Yeah. So the same strategy would apply, like I said, to the well. Like if, let's say let's just say a house is on public water, but there is a septic. If you want to do the same strategy that you're going to ask the seller to have the septic pumped and inspected prior to deed transfer, and you'll give them like, $1,000 credit. We'll just use that as our number at closing towards their expenses. That works. But when you're on well and septic, it really just takes it to a whole different level of safety for your client. And as much information as that listing agent can provide you, that's what's going to give you the educated decision on how you're going to advise your clients to move forward. If everything was done and you're like, this is great, this is a 1,500 gallon concrete tank with 360 feet leach fields, and the well is 200 feet away and it's drilled and they have a UV system in place, and there's 20 offers coming in, that's when I would feel, look, I would say I'm not an attorney, but from my experience, everything at this property is as best as it could be at this point. So if you want to waive them, check with the bank always first though. Don't ever waive well and septic unless you check with their lender, if their lender is going to be okay with that. You don't want that to come back midstream saying, no, the lender said this, because of their loan terms, which could be FHA, VA, or USDA, they're saying they have to have a well inspection. Don't let that bite you halfway through. But if your clients are conventional and you're talking with your, Andy Saxby at Canandaigua National, and he's like, there's nothing within this loan type that says it's required. So if you feel everything's there and everything is best as you can see it to be, then they may be comfortable waiving that. But if there's red flags, then the next step I would go is I would do the credit at closing. So I give the perk of, look, I still want you to do it. It's still on you. It's still a safe. It's still keeping me under the house of a contingency, but we're giving you a perk at the end to take care of it. That's if I was competing. If I wasn't competing against anyone, I would put it on them all day long. Both of them.
Thank you so much. I gotta run. This was
Okay.
great, Teresa. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Any other questions, anybody? Is anything like you're thinking of what I said, like I didn't know that, or that's not how I heard it, or
This is super helpful.
oh good,
Super
I'm glad.
helpful. I've done a lot of them and it still was helpful.
Oh, I'm
So,
so glad.
yeah,
Anybody?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Teresa, would you be so kind
Thank
to
you.
email your notes to Morgan? And I'm
Oh,
gonna
yes.
ask if she could disperse to everybody who came to the class.
Even better idea. I'll do that. Of course I will. Great idea.
Thank you
Yes,
so
I
much.
love that.
And I want to say thank you to everybody who leaned into this class. Teresa is such an asset, and I love to see that there's 12 people
Oh, is
on the
it 12? I
Zoom.
can't see everybody.
Yep. So I'm really happy with the class turnout, and I apologize for having to leave.
Yes. Okay.
I got hacked really, really bad.
Oh, shoot.
Really bad. Like state police are involved, local police are involved, very bad.
Oh
So
no.
that was them calling. I do
All
want
right.
to say to protect yourself on Facebook, my friends, make sure you have two step verification on. And if you run Facebook ads, take your credit card off. This is awful. So if you keep your credit card stored on there for whatever reason to boost ads or anything like that, I would just suggest take it off. That's
Good to
all.
know. Thank you for sharing that.
You're
Sorry
welcome.
that happened to you. Yeah, I'll be praying for you that it gets remedied and your credit card
Thank
company
you.
will be good to you and it'll all be
Thanks.
behind you.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Last minute questions? Anybody else want to, anything that was confusing you want to hear again? Anything else? I know it's overwhelming, isn't it? It's really overwhelming. We didn't even get to talk about radon either.
It's another
I think
day.
I'm just digesting.
I want to let you know this is being recorded, so it
Okay.
will be up on our KW page. So if you want to rewatch it, you're going to be able to do that and print out Teresa's notes and then take your own notes. So look for that. I did take a little picture of everybody on the Zoom, and I'm going to send it over to Fran and have her post that to our Facebook group if everybody is okay with that, if I have your permission. I think that, it'll be nice to showcase all the people that were on this class. So
Yay. Yay. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Teresa. This was great.
Thank
Hi.
you, Teresa.
Hello.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, everyone. Like I said, I only have the people at the top of the screen, so I can't see all your beautiful faces that are here. So I'm all glad that you all came. Last minute, I've got anybody else? Last minute question, anyone? Anyone need anything? Okay. If anybody wants to call me about radon, call me. Okay, because that's another topic of discussion. I'm happy to talk about it. All right.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.